Camera.
You're live.
All right. So this evening, Ray is going to be delivering a speech from the Competent Communication Manual, challenging him to practice his gestures. It is the project number 5, Your Body Speaks. Ray has been Toastmaster member for many years. This is his 16th time working through this manual so far. He has some objectives for his presentation this evening. His objectives for this speech are to use stance, movement, gestures, facial expressions, and eye contact to express his message and achieve his speech's purpose. To make his body language smooth and natural. Time is 12 to 15 minutes. Ray asks us, have you ever decided to do something, actually do it, and then when that decision goes sour, you say to yourself, what the heck was I thinking? Well, please join me in welcoming Ray Stonehouse, Distinguished Toastmaster. It seemed like a good idea at the time. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Ray Stonehouse.
Well, it really did seem like a good idea at the time. Has anybody ever said that to themselves? Have I got a wonderful idea? You ever said that? Have they always worked out for you? Or have they gone wrong sometimes? What I'd like to share with you is more than a few stories of times in my life where I thought I had a fantastic idea where it kind of went south. It kind of went sour on me. Maybe you can relate to some of these. Let's start off with the first one. This is probably one of the earliest ones that I remember. By show of hands, who remembers the 60s?
Yeah.
Some of you weren't around in the 60s? Have you heard about the 60s?
Yeah, I've heard of this.
Yeah, they were a while. But one of the products that came out in the 60s was really exciting. And it was something called Great Shakes. Anybody ever heard of it? What it was a brown container. It was a plastic container with a lid. And the idea was that you could make great milkshakes just like you would restaurant quality or Dairy Queen quality. You can make them at home. All you had to do was this 2-piece brown container with the bottom part and a lid. So what you did was you put the package, kind of like a hot chocolate mix. You put a hot chocolate mix in, you put some milk in, maybe some ice cream if you happen to have any, or perhaps you could put some ice in and some milk, put the lid on, and you shake it. You give it a great shake, because that's why it was called Great Shake. So you shake it up, and you pour it out, and you have a nice frosty milkshake. Did you ever have them, Michelle? Do you remember them at all?
I remember them.
Great Shakes. Well, I thought, and I really thought it was a great idea at the time, that if you can make a cold frothy milkshake, why couldn't you make a hot milkshake? Anybody else ever think of something like that? No? Well, I did. What happened was I used cocoa, and I used hot water, and I put the lid on, and I gave it a great shake. No, anybody take physics in school? Any idea what happens when a sealed container has a heat buildup? Can you imagine what happens? What do you think happens? Kablooey, exactly. In the kitchen, there was hot chocolate milk everywhere. The greatest idea that I had, that I recall, and it did not work out right. It was all over the place. My mother, I wouldn't say she was furious, but she had to help me clean it up because it was a real mess. That was an idea that didn't work out so great. And I really should have shared that experience with my friend Pam, co-worker Pam. This was years ago. We were working in a psychiatric facility. We were working night shift. Well, what happens on night shift is, the patients are sleeping. You basically do what you want. You have to do something to help keep yourself awake. What Pam liked to do, she was very artistic. And she used to paint. She had this paint. I don't even know if it exists anymore. Are there any artists in the room? Do you do anything with paint? You ever heard of acrylic paint? Okay, you have an idea what acrylic paint was. Well, it was in tubes. And the tubes the company was called Artex. And what you do, it was like a tube of toothpaste, and you would paint on cloth or paper or canvas or material, whatever. That's what she did. But that particular evening, her paints weren't as flexible as she would have liked. And they were stiff, they were hard. She couldn't do anything artistic with it. So she got the brilliant idea, and that's why I recognize this one of those brilliant ideas, that if you slightly heated up the Artex tubes, the paint would be a lot more flexible. It would be supple, I guess that's the word. And she would have been able to paint. She put it on a stove in what we call the dirty service room. There's a hot plate. She put it in a pot of water, put it on the stove, and heated it. Problem was, she got busy doing something else on night shift. And she forgot about it until her memory was jogged when there was a loud kaboom. She went into the dirty service room only to find that it was like somebody had thrown a Technicolor hand grenade, because poof, the entire room was spray painted, graffiti style, with all these multiple colors all over the room. Now, she learned a lesson. I guess she didn't have the advantage of my advanced wisdom, nor I never thought about it until after the fact. I could have told her. I could have saved her all that work. I could have saved the housekeeping and the maintenance crew several days worth of work, because they had to go in and clean it. And acrylic, I'm not quite sure what acrylic is, but when you wipe it down, it doesn't really come off. It's not like a watercolor, it smears. So it was a long and arduous task for the cleaning crew and the maintenance. So Pam could have learned from my lesson. When you heat things up, kaboom! That happens. I don't think I've done that one before. But throughout my life, I've had numerous situations where other things have gone south, the way I say it. Back in the 80s, early 80s, I had a van. I called it the Bone Mobile. It was a large van, the Bone Mobile. That's kind of an odd name for a van. But why I call it the Bone Mobile is I bought it from a pet food company. And right on the front of the van was a large bone. It was like supposed to be a dog biscuit. So everybody knew it as the Bone Mobile. But the Bone Mobile gave me much grief. It was just one thing after another that I don't know how it happened. It's just like bad luck followed me. First couple of weeks that I had it, I was parked at work. I drove out, finishing my night. I worked a night shift with Dorothy, another night shift, different person. I worked the night shift. I drove out of the parking lot. Didn't see Dorothy in my blind spot, right in front. Brand new Chrysler Cordoba. She had won it in called Winteria. It was like a lottery. She had just won it 3 weeks ago. The Bone Mobile tore off her back quarter panel, $2,500 damage. The Bone Mobile was haunted. It kept doing things to me. I had a boat back in those days. I went to the lake. I wanted to launch my boat. People launch boats all the time. I backed into the lake. I tried pulling out. Didn't quite work. The Bone Mobile bottomed out. I had to get a tow truck to pull me out. Seemed like a good idea at the time. Pull back, drop your boat off, and take off. That's what the plan was. Didn't work out. Had to get a tow truck. Not that much longer, the same summer, I lived out in the country. There was a farm across the road from me. I had a big garden, huge garden. And what I wanted to do was I bought a pile of manure from the farmer across the road. Anybody ever buy manure? Well, it's not something you haul in your pockets. It's not something you haul in buckets. You back the trailer up, the truck with the trailer, different trailer, not the boat trailer, back it up, and I'm loading a pitchfork, and I'm shoveling manure. You know, several hours worth of shoveling manure, up until the point where the pitchfork went in and took off the lid to a hornet's nest. Now this is where my life changed dramatically. I had to run. I just was like, legs don't fail me now. Running for my life. Well, the hornets chased me out of the parking lot. Five of them got me. I had 5, fortunately I wasn't allergic to bee stings, but 5 hornets got me. Finally got the nerve, well I still have to go back and get the van. Guess what happened in the meantime? Bottomed out again, manure pile. Had to get the tow truck driver. Guess which tow truck driver? Same tow truck driver that had pulled me out of the lake. Which coincidentally was the guy that rescued me at the dump when the starter went. He was the guy that pulled me out of the snowbank. Maybe it was a different one. The Bone Mobile kept causing me all kinds of problems. It wasn't my fault, because they seemed like good ideas at the time. You should be able to do it. Any mechanical people among us? You ever installed a stereo? In a van? Out in the country? By yourself? When nobody's there? I'm out in the country. My wife, she's working a 3 to 11 shift. Farm across the road. A couple houses over here, but nobody was there. I'm going to install a stereo in my van, which was no problems, until I got to the back door, and I was going to install the speakers. Well, the speakers were inside of the panels of the door. Well, there's an access hole where I had to get into the back of the speaker to plug in the speaker cords. So I reached in, which was fine, worked fine. I plugged in the wires to the speaker, everything was fine, until I got to the point where I was ready to exit or pull my hand out from the truck door. That was the theory. Seemed like a good idea, hand went in perfectly. You ever heard of those things called Chinese thumb tortures? You ever heard of them? What they are is like a set of teeth like this. So when your finger goes into it, they grip. So if you pull on it, you can't get anything. You can't get your finger out. The way to do it is you have to relax. Well, I knew that part. So I relaxed my hand, but the door was still winning the battle. It would not let me pull out. I was stuck. My wife's working 3 to 11. It's 5 o'clock. I'm sitting in the van in the middle of nowhere, thinking, what am I going to do? I have no idea what I'm going to do. And this was long before cell phones. I couldn't phone 911. I couldn't phone somebody for help. There was nobody to go by to wave down. Well, fortunately, this is where the good idea sometimes don't work out, so you have to have a plan B. My plan B worked out quite well. Anybody ever remember a TV show? It's on again now, called MacGyver? Mm-hmm. MacGyver could make an airplane out of a paper clip and a clothespin. That's how smart he was. Well, I'm not that smart. But what I realized was, I was sitting in the back of my van, my hand stuck here, and down below was the ball hitch. It was a trailer hitch. And I looked at it, and it was really yucky. There was grease on it. What it was this product called Lith Ease. So it was a lithium grease that I had used when I had the trailer on all those times that I got stuck. I was able to get it with my free hand, and I was able to reach down, and I was able to grease up my wrist. That allowed me to pull out my wrist and extricate myself from this situation, which seemed like a good idea at the time. It was an easy thing to do. That was the adventures of the Bowmobile. I've actually written not a book, but a whole series of different stories related to those good ideas. You ever had a good idea that, once again, seems like a good idea at the time, but it's haunted you for year after year after year? You ever had one of those? Well, I'd like to share one with you. I'm a gardener. I've been a gardener. I wouldn't say I'm super passionate about it, but if the summertime comes, spring, summer, and fall, it plays a major portion of my life. The house we particularly bought it because it has a lot of gardens. Not so much vegetable gardens, but mostly ornamental and decorative gardens. And my yard is very technical. It's straight up and down. From the road to where we park sometimes to the front door, it's 30 steps to get up there. And it's probably about another 150 steps to get up to the backyard. So it's a very technical yard. And we have all kinds of ornamentals. We have cedars, we have hedges, potentillas, a lot of different decorative plants. But there was one that really caught my attention. Throughout the years, one of the plants, and any gardeners here, just am I talking to anybody who knows what we're doing? One of the things you don't want in your garden is thistle. They're pricklies. You can't get them out properly. You have to take a set of clippers, you have to pick them up like they're tweezers and drop them in a bucket because the thorns will go right through your gloves. But one started to grow in my yard, on the hill, near the road. And it got about this high. It was about maybe 3-4 foot high. And it was really looking neat. That was really cool. It was really an aggressive looking plant. Big thorns. It was starting to stretch out about 3 foot. My wife said, you should pull that out pretty quickly. This is beautiful. I want to see it. This is a Canadian thistle. The Canadian thistle. It puts out it's like a Scottish thistle. It puts out a purple large flower. And it has these massive arms with spikes that are coming out of it that are about 1.5 inches 2 inches long. And it continues to grow. My wife says, you better get that out of there. No, I want to see what happens. It was really looking majestic. I started calling it my Klingon warrior plant because it looked like, if you're a Star Trek fan, Klingons are really, really nasty. And this plant was really, it looked like a killer plant. But I wanted to see what it was going to do. And it kept on growing. It got to the point where it was probably 6 foot tall, maybe 5 feet across. And it looked really impressive because it was on a bit of a hill. And you couldn't help but miss it. You couldn't miss it. These perfect purple thistle plants. Just a beautiful, I'm going to say plumage, but that'd be bird, but flowers. And I wanted to see what happened. Well, that's probably the famous last words. You want to see what happens. Maybe I shouldn't have waited. Anybody ever, you know what happens when a dandelion goes to seed? You ever know dandelions? They start off yellow. Mm-hmm. Then what happens? They turn off a white seed. Yep. The wind gets them. The seeds are everywhere. Dandelions are everywhere. Exactly what happens to a Canadian thistle. All of these purple, beautiful flowers, they become white, and they're like little parachutes, and they fly around the neighborhood, and they're all over the yard. So I thought, okay, that's ridiculous. Chopped down the major, took it down about 20 pieces because I didn't want it to kill me because the spikes were about 1.5 inches long. Got rid of this Klingon death plant. It was gone. It's over. Story's over. Until next year. The year after that. And guess what? All the little babies all around the yard. So I'm picking up about 20 of them, and I had to make sure because each one of those, if you don't get them, you don't nip them in the bud, they start to grow again and they become Klingon death plants. Year 1. By year 2, I'm still chopping them off. But this time I'm on it, I'm going to chop them off and it's not going to happen. Year 3, year 4, still fighting them. The neighbors, I see them in the neighbor's yard. I never did confess, never did tell them, never told them that it was my fault. I just have a little bit of a chuckle thinking, you better nip that in the bud. This is going to be year 5. I'm really excited to find out what happens to the continuing story of the Klingon death plant. That's one of my recent stories about things that started off as a good idea, didn't turn out. I just bought a gas-powered hedge trimmer. I think it's a great idea. We'll see. Madam Chair.